Omaha has great space for creative opportunities. Three of our leading creative voices we have here with us today, and they're going to be discussing their approaches to developing creativity in the community. We have Marcey Yates, founder of Culture House. We have, now, are you Stephan or Stephen?
All right, now I'm on. I'm Stephan.
Aha, there we go. Okay, good. Stephan Grot, Executive Director of Connecco, and Tim Berry, co-founder and managing partner of Hot Shops Art Center. Welcome all. Thank you for being here with us. Now, let's start with Marcey. You built a place where artists and entrepreneurs can grow, enrich their talents. Tell us about the mission of Culture House. And I'm fortunate to have had dealings and seen it and saw it grow. Love it. Tell us more about Culture House and how you're giving a safe place for artists in the community, specifically, the North Omaha community, a place to grow.
Well, thanks. First off, it's an honor to be here with this panel. It's wonderful. So about Culture House, our mission really is to have this space that's innovative, it's safe, feels like a world like that you can come in and get away from the outside world, to be honest. When starting it, the idea was to try to bridge these gaps between artists and entrepreneurship, where the artist can take the art and be able to have economic opportunities. So often the artist struggles the most. Or they're trying to find another job to help support the art and things like that. So when I came up with the space, that was the whole idea. But it's not just about your idea though. It's about other people's needs too and the community. So we start off as this, but the more people that came through the doors that had other interests in the space, that had other needs, that's how we branched out to the other things with the creatives and then other entrepreneurs, not just artists, activists and community. So it's one thing that kind of just grew like that. And it's about paying attention to what the community needs, what they don't have, and trying to fit all that kind of in one roof.
That's what's unique about Culture House is it morphs to the needs of the artists and the creatives that utilize and come to the space. So I've had people ask me what is Culture House? And I'm like, well, that would depend on who you're dealing with at Culture House. So that's amazing. Stephan, my bad. You've worked closely with the Connecco family most of your career. And you've had many unique opportunities and creative performances, which is the foundation of the Connecco mission. Tell us about the mission as you see it, as you've dealt with it, and how does experiencing art help one grow?
Well, to start with the mission, it very clearly says a couple of times that we are all about creative exploration, which gives us an awful lot of latitude to figure out pretty much anything that we want to be able to do. There's not really any sort of limitation with regards to what we are allowed to do because it's limited by the imagination that we have. Not unlike Marcey's description, we adapt to what the community is looking for, to the people who come into our space. And so the way that we define ourselves is usually by defining kind of what it is that's going on right now and what our plans are coming up. With regards to just the approach to creativity, the approach to the artists and the people who come through here, we tend to say that we are an artistic community, but we also like to stress and evangelize the fact that creativity comes in all shapes and forms, and pretty much any kind of unique idea in any industry has creativity involved in it. So we work with not only the arts, but science and philosophy, and we try to have an equal amount of each one of those things. And just because you walk in and see artwork on the walls, it doesn't mean that there aren't really amazing things that are happening in here all the time, like this panel that we have here.
Amazing. Yeah, we're huge fans of Kaneko and the mission. I know one is a super fan. Kim. All right, so Tim Berry, along with 4 other artists, all in the fields of metals, clay, and glass, working with fire, founded the Hot Shops Art Center 21 years ago. Small group, dreamt of building a highly collaborative space that supported community and artists. So now 70 working artists provide educational opportunities for everyone to be able to explore. Tell us about the mission of Hot Shops and why the hands-on process is so important.
Well, thanks. Mission of the Hot Shops, very simple, very similar to the other two. Our mission is, Hot Shops is a place where ideas, dreams, and what ifs are explored, created, and shared. Back when we started Hot Shops, there was a big need for space. And probably the best gift you can give an artist is a safe place to work. If we don't have places to work, stuff doesn't happen. Really, the only criteria to have a space at the Hot Shops is the check has to clear. We don't try and judge, oh no, your stuff isn't good enough, or we don't understand this, or we want it to be a place where they can come and see how good they can be. Because we've got this critical mass of people and all the different, from glass blowing to ceramics to sculpture to painting, the collaborations that take place because these artists' paths are crossing. Most of them came to us out of isolation, studios and bedrooms, basements, garages, and that kind of stuff. If they want to be isolated, they keep their door closed, but they can't walk to their studio space without being influenced by the other stuff that they walk by. If they need help, whether it's moving a table or building something, there's not a tool that we don't have. If you get stuck on an idea, you can bring 5 artists in, and get a critique. They share customers, they share ideas, and really that's what it's all about is what are you thinking? Let's do it.
What I find really unique about Hot Shops is that along with the nature of craftsmanship and fine art, again, sculpture, painting, those studio art components, you also have I struggle to call it commercial, but you have businesses that are run out of Hot Shops, which I find is unique in your position on this panel, that Hot Shops affords businesses or creatives who want to grow in entrepreneurship an actual space, not just a platform. I find.
Yeah, no, it really is a place where, a lot of people have come and started. They'll be there a couple of years and figure out, no, this isn't for me, and then they're gone. But a lot of them have figured out, no, this is pretty cool. And then they're, they've grown out of their space and they move somewhere else or into Benson or, we've had a couple set up places in Kansas City. So it really is a little bit of an incubator. There's a handful of us that it's our normal gig. We're there every day. This is what we do. For a lot of them, they have what we call real jobs, but that real job enables them to have the studio. They're doing something they're passionate about, they're productive with. Hopefully they make a few bucks. But it really, the arts celebrate the individual, and now more than ever, everybody's looking for their voice and looking for ways to express their voice. And, so again, it's about providing space for those things to happen, those explorations to happen.
Very nice, very nice. Now, the arts have a sort of marketing disconnect often, where you've got your, high-end gallery spaces with, billions of dollars being passed in a New York City or San Francisco or those larger cities, But the truth of the matter is that many artists and art spaces building community are nonprofit, and it costs to pay for your endeavors. Explain, each of you, if you can, how or why you set up as a nonprofit, or and how you fund this communal endeavor to help creativity grow.
Yeah, I'll speak to that. But Culture House is we're fairly young. We just had our 1 year anniversary, but we operated a year prior to that. And so when I started off as a LLC. My idea wasn't to go into nonprofit. You're talking about me being a hip hop artist, recording artist, and then going into this realm though. So imagine the type of acceleration, like learning process you have to go through, right? So me, I was coming out of pocket after I do shows, after I sell beats, after I do these things. I'm coming out of pocket to pay for this space. But again, the more that it picked up and the more responsibility that I have with the space, which was trying to care about others in the community too as well, I had to have more resources. And so that's how I got into, first off, just applying for, grants and things like that. And then going into the realm of getting a 501c3. So I know that I could create programs and get funding to help support the mission overall. So that's kind of what I found out. And again, I didn't come into it thinking you'll start a nonprofit. I came in just wanting to do the right thing. And then you learn how that you can make that sustainable. So that's kind of how it came about.
Stephan, Tim?
So we originally started as a nonprofit about 10 years ago. I've been working with our founders, Ree and June Kaneko, for about 20 years now. I was a studio assistant at the time, doing everything from building their website to building crates. And June Kaneko is one of the most prolific ceramic artists in the world. And the nonprofit originally started to be a place where if anything were to happen to him, his very extensive collection of artwork would have a safe place to land. So it started off as an artist foundation, an artist endowed foundation. But from there, we really quickly realized that because of the warehouse space that we had, just like Tim talked about, just like Marcey talked about, we realized that it was an opportunity to give other people space to be able to create. So the tagline for our organization is open space for your mind. And it started off that way. The first few people who came through here got run of the whole entire building. They got to make something bigger and other than anything they've ever made before. And so the idea of having this nonprofit that could allow for just totally free thinking, was really alien to a lot of people. In fact, we're still kind of trying to get people to understand how this works. But the people who come through here and understand the opportunity where it's just like, I can do anything I want is exciting for them. It's a moment of a lifetime. And so the correlation between being a nonprofit has an awful lot to do with this idea of community accessibility. We're free and open to the public. People can walk in here anytime they want to. We try to collaborate with organizations like CreativeMornings and really try to emphasize the idea of this isn't just a place for artwork to come and sit. It's a place for people to come and generate ideas. And that kind of what we owe to the community has an awful lot to do with that idea of being a nonprofit. Being a nonprofit means that you have to go and find money basically anywhere that you possibly can. And then you have the community that you need to answer to. And so what better way to be able to answer to them to kind of be that space so that the community can come and play around and have fun in.
The thread that runs through the three organizations, sustainability. And after 21 years or 20 years of Hot Shops being a LLC, a for-profit arts center, and we kept it right at break even the whole time. Affordable space for the artists to work is real important. But, you know, after 20 years, you know, my hair is white now and soon will be gone. So we're really looking at passing the torch, and the only best way to do that was to become a nonprofit. 100-year-old warehouse, the maintenance is incredible. As the neighborhood develops, the taxation is going to be a problem. And those of us that started Hot Shops, it wasn't about creating a place and a project that we could walk away with a big bag of money after 20 years. Our goal is that 20 years from now, it's still a working, affordable art center for young creatives and, you know, the public. I mean, our big thing is, you know, we do all this crazy, wonderful stuff, but unless we have a place to share it, you know, nobody gets to see or hear. And so really our success and, you know, the success of the other two organizations is we've just held a mirror up to the community. We're a reflection of what's here. So hopefully, you know, going into the future, it's all good, but right now it's still all a blur.
Well, that brings us to a good next point. You are in an area that is developing rapidly. And with the changes in that development, as you mentioned, there's taxation, there's funding issues, there's you know, civic issues with that development. How do you see, or how would you like to see Hot Shops in the next 2 to 5 years, say, slot into what's going on in your area of development?
We're just, you know, we're kind of an anchor to the neighborhood. A lot of development, a lot of residential has grown up, a lot of small entrepreneurial space, some large, you know, Flywheel, I think, has got 250 employees. They're going to be, they've moved into the building kitty corner. But we're open, we're always changing because there's new artwork going up on the walls all the time. We're the same building, but what happens, the energy inside never gets stale. And so we're you know, Hot Shops is just the Greek root word for what if. So, you know, whatever wants to happen in that neighborhood, we want to be a part of it. We want to help it. We want to encourage it. And, you know, just like the other two places, we're opened all the time. We're available. And the only rule is really there are no rules.
Very cool. Marcey, similar question for you. Your organization has had astronomical growth. And I mean rapid growth. It's been a year, as you said. New space, you know, storefront door to the street now. Where do you see that growth going, or is there a plan? You know, is it still in development in terms of, you know, you have your mission, but so many things happen. You were integral, and your organization and your space was integral to the protests that happened in the summer, in social justice and pushing things forward and keeping things highlighted. And so even then, your organization, the face of it shifted a bit, and it was less about the art and creativity and more about activism. So where do you see it going in the next few years, or is that the platform to stay malleable?
I feel like, well, with the last thing you just said, maybe that is the platform. As I see it, you know, pivoting is important. I think not being married to one thing in 2021, you can't. Things are going to change all the time, so I think you have to allow that much room for you to be able to pivot. And so, no, we haven't gotten away from art. We just integrated the art into social justice, because that's the moment right now. You know, And that's the approach we took with it. Like, I can't sit here and say that I'm not still processing last year. I am right now still. So, you know, I have to, those moments, you know, they're just moments, you know what I'm saying? And so you have to keep going forward. The mission won't change. Coach House is gonna be here as long as people see a use for it. And that's why I continue to tell the people it's for who it's for. I can't say it's not for everybody, but anybody who see an interest in it, then it's for them. And that's what's going to keep it going. That's what elevated us to where we are now. And I feel like I don't want to change anything. I want to stay true to what we've been doing. And that's going to continue to help us grow. You know, we're in an area that's very, you know, coming from an area that gives me a disadvantage, you know. I felt like it was good timing for us to help spark our growth, like socially, and just like in the media, which gives us our reputation now, which is really good. Right, we've only been around for, you know, a couple of years, so the impact we have been able to make has been really great. I didn't see that coming. Again, when you do something authentic and you're just trying to do the right thing, and you align just right, then, you know, the universe and things that just happen. So that's how I feel.
Amazing. Yeah, it does. It tend to take on a life of its own when it needs to. And I think that's unique to your organization, is that it's built into the fabric of, you know, the plan is not really to have a concrete plan yet, because we're in times of change. And if you are at the crux of change, then as you said, the pivot is the plan. Stephan, similar question for you. Kaneko is beyond established. It's global. Very deep roots, very a massive catalog of things. And as you said, it goes into philosophy and, you know, lots of mind, mental energy and thought, philosophy of things, more than just studio art, but also performances, hosting, all the things that we've known Kaneko to be. Where's the growth for an organization like Kaneko, in that you are so well established? And as you said, you still want people to understand what it's about. You want artists to understand what it's about, but the community knows. Where does an organization like Kaneko move to?
That's a really interesting question, especially because you're flattering me a little bit too much with regards to how many people know who we are. I feel like we are still trying to get the word out that we exist. It took a pandemic and protests for a lot of people to wake up to the fact that we need places of culture in our community in order to make our lives interesting, in order to kind of generate the access to inspiration that we need in order to feel alive. And you know, the ability for us to define who we are at Kaneko and what Kaneko means to the community is a question that we're constantly trying to answer. There are some concrete things in our plans that we have over the next few years that actually have to do with the original plan. I am currently fundraising for a collection building, a permanent collection building for June Kaneko's ceramic collection. We should have over 2,000 pieces in that when that's all done. I'm hoping that we can have that building built within the next couple of years. And, you know, a big task that comes with that is us redefining ourselves all over again. This will be another addition to what we really believe is a very important place that is going to really put us on the map internationally for a totally different reason. And we need to adapt to that. So the wall that you're looking at behind us is a new gateway into an education space. We're dedicating ourselves more to education, to evangelism of creativity, getting people to understand that sometimes in order to feel creative, you got to be doing things. And so We want to create as many of those opportunities as we can. And so education and this permanent collection is going to be two really important things. But from there, it always is going to be this question of how do we make the next decision? I had a conversation with two of my board members yesterday around that exact question: is how do we make the next decision? And so I don't think that we're ever going to perfectly be able to answer that. It comes down to who's in the room and what you want to do. And I think that's another common thread that's between the three of us is, you got to get creative people in the door, or people who don't believe that they're creative, and start to talk to them about creative things. And you find out that people have ideas all over the place, and it's just giving them that access to the inspiration and the ability to do it once they have that idea. So that third leg of the stool is always going to be kind of like, we don't know what's next.
That's really interesting that you say that. It was not a matter of what to do, but how to decide what to do. That's interesting. Very interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay, so for all of you, Lori out of Brooklyn had a good question. Very good question. How supportive is the city government? How supportive is the civic space for your organizations and the work that you do?
I can grab that one first. I would say that same answer as before. There are certain aspects of the city government that have always been aware of us, that have always been really helpful, and we're tremendously thankful for that. But I would say that the majority of folks that are in the government had no idea that Connecco even existed. And it took a pandemic for them to realize that we were here, and that organizations like the three of ours are really vitally important. And so I've been hearing people say something like, yeah, okay, that sounds like an interesting idea. Like, do you get a lot of people who come through? To, oh yeah, I've heard about Connecco and I've heard about all the amazing things that you guys do. You absolutely have to survive through this. It's more important than ever that places like yours exist. And so people are changing their tunes. I'm not saying that it's been bad, because we've had a lot of like really amazing friends who have always been around. But people just didn't understand the importance of organizations like ours with regards to the overall health of the community. So it's encouraging.
Yeah, I think that's really unique. And in the lexicon, not a lot of people understand public and private when it comes to community organizations, because although you have the public face or being a nonprofit, a lot of the funding is private. Public funding means it came from a civic organization. Private funding means from the citizens themselves, and so I don't think that people often realize that even for the public face of organizations, a lot of the support is private.
Oh, that's right. Absolutely. The ability to fund our space is just constant grant writing and constantly talking to people and showing them opportunities and getting them inspired. My job is just talking to people and getting them excited about the next thing that can happen here. And so the ability to fundraise only comes from getting people excited and getting them in the door and getting them activated. And it's probably different for every single one of our organizations. I know that it's different for every nonprofit. But the public sector is hugely important, because without that kind of support, then you don't have access to kind of the next thing. And that's oftentimes where you get some of your answers as far as what's next too, is the people who come in here who are interested in what you have going on.
Right.
Sorry,
okay.
I'm hogging this now.
I have a practical question for everyone. Here's a practical question, because I know where all of you are located. Outside of two of your organizations are rough cobblestone streets and a sort of hidden gem vibe. I know that Culture House recently moved onto a main thoroughfare, but in previous was kind of tucked away more of a neighborhood organization. How do you think the physical look and feel, the access to your space affects how people see you?
Man, that's interesting. You know, you would think that you would want to have like this really great attractive facade, right? That people look at and be like, oh, I want to go in there. Ours, you know, when you look at it from outside, we have this mural that's in the front, and then the rest is, you know, this red brick. Some of it's even dirty, you know, needs a power spray. You know what I'm saying? But that's just showing the authenticity. I mean, we're not there yet. We're starting a capital campaign to buy the building. You know what I'm saying? I would love for it to look as great on the outside as some of these other spaces that I do see. But in reality, that kind of adds to who we are. You know, we're grassroots, we're from the ground up, man. Our support really comes from the community, it comes from our network, it comes from our allies. We don't get the big funders. We don't have foundations that give us money. You know what I'm saying? So therefore, we have to use it the way we have to use it, you know? And so again, I think the things that we do is what attracts people there. It's not what the outside looks like. It's about what's in the inside, what you have to offer and what you are providing. But again, to add to the question, as far as the support from the city, we have new senators that are in now that show lots of support through the summer. They were there for workshops. They were there supporting, you know what I'm saying, Black Lives Matter. A lot of the leaders in the community were too. I can't say the same for some of the other, upper officials. You know, we did some things that caused a little controversy. And honestly, if we were behind some kind of super big funding, we may have maybe thought twice, you know what I'm saying? Because we could have thought maybe we may lose our funding and things like that. We're going to see how it turned out this year, you know, whether we get these grants or not that we know we're writing for. So whether or not, you know what I'm saying, there's any, again, what we try to do is just do what's right. Our situation is a little bit different, you know what I'm saying, from Hot Shops and from Kaneko, as we are predominantly Black, you know what I'm saying? And in that space, we have to talk about things that make us uncomfortable. And, you know, we can't shy away from that just because we may be worried about support from some other people, things like that. So I think we just try to stay true to what we do. And, we'll take it as we get it and improve as we can.
Absolutely. And I think you're right. You are in a unique space with activism, with social good. It's a very fine line to have funding and be worried about that funding because it would stop you from doing your job.
Absolutely.
So Tim, Stephan, the question of not really, and this kind of plays into the civic connection, the civic support. Again, you've got these sort of hidden gem areas. You've got, again, cobblestone streets, railroad tracks that are still exposed. How do you feel that public access, not so much to your door, but to your area, affects how people know about you or interact with your organizations?
So fortunately, one good thing that happened over this last very terrible year was that cobblestone street was ripped up and redone. That was a thing that we had been advocating for. I remember writing the original TIF grant 15 years ago to have that street redone, kind of the initial installation that needed to get people to figure out the planning for all of that. Up until that point, it had always been, one of those kind of funny things. Like, we're tucked into the corner of downtown. You know, everybody thinks like, oh, you're downtown, everybody will be able to find you. But we're just off the beaten path enough for it not to be easy to find us. But to kind of go back to one of your questions, thanks to the realization and the investment of the city and the understanding that we need to take that several hundred-year-old cobblestone road and remake it and make it so that people can get down here a little bit easier, is making it so that people are realizing that it's a safer space. To kind of play off of the question that you're asking Marcey, and just like what Marcey's space, the culture house, the interior of that space looks like. The approachability is one thing to kind of say like, hey, I want to walk in there. But the overall idea of safety has a big aspect to do with inspiration. You kind of need to feel like you have room to breathe. You want to be able to go down that road. It doesn't look dangerous before you can kind of get to that space where you can feel creative, you can feel welcome. So it's a really big deal. Access is huge. And, doorways, just like, the simple things that we don't think about all the time, like for someone to not feel like they're safe or welcome is the first step into people feeling they can do anything in any one of our spaces. So there's a lot of inviting involved in what we do.
Very good, very good. I think that is absolutely key, that the invitation, or the realization that the invitation has already been extended before you say anything.
Right.
Yeah, our location, when we started, we locked into that 6 months before we voted on what was then Quest. So the fact that that location was so isolated and so desolate, that's the only way we were able to lock that building up. If we would have waited until after they voted on the convention center, speculation, property values would have gone up and we wouldn't have been able to do the deal. Because of that isolation, it was great for us because, and it's still great because right now I don't have parking meters in front of the building, but 12 months from now that will probably change. So for the working artists, it was easy for us to get in, to get out. We could be noisy. We could, it was great. But now as it's starting to grow around us and tightening up, it's still a great location. This is Omaha. We don't have professional sports. We don't have miles of beaches. We don't have great fishing. The support for the arts is one of the things that makes us unique, and that the city, helps sell. This is a creative place. And so, and our uniqueness is we're working studios. If the population is just going to the museums and the high-end galleries, they're only seeing the finished work. If you haven't felt the heat from the glass furnace, if you haven't seen what it takes to put a bronze statue together, when we see them, they're all finished and shined up. You don't realize that there's 14 pieces that have been welded together and, all of that stuff. So we're kind of that foundation piece that gives everybody the understanding. Again, we're something that doesn't become stale. So in an area where there's a lot of mixed use, small business, big business, residential, tourists, we're a good story to tell. But really, it doesn't matter if it's Coneco or Culture House. We all know what we like. We only like what we know. Wherever one or more are gathered, we have to be able to tell our stories.
Very good. Very, very good.
Damn good stories to tell.
There are some damn good stories to tell, for sure. For sure. Well, we greatly appreciate all of you coming and sharing with us. If there are any more questions, please put them in the chat. Or Kim, do you want to open the floor up for questions?
Melanie had a question.
Go ahead, Melanie. Go ahead and ask.
Oh, yeah. If you want to unmute Melanie, you can.
Oh, there I am. Hey, I was just wondering if there are any specific ways that creatives can get involved with your organizations.
Ooh, excellent question.
Yeah, just
who wants to take that?
Call us, text us, throw something at us. We all could use volunteers. We all could use help.
Yeah, I think you'd be surprised how easy it is to get involved. One of the things that is a challenge is getting the word out when we do want to have people around and involved. And the funny thing is we've got somebody in the room right now who just started with us, who is a new member of our team, who just came over and started hanging out and helping out. That's the key, is sort of showing that interest and understanding and asking questions. But texting and emailing and just sort of and admitting that you don't exactly know how to get involved, but you want to be, is a really big first important step, because we don't know what we don't know. And so we broadcast things out there all the time, and asking for help can get kind of exhausting from time to time. And so you go to the network that you know first, and you ask them for some help before you just kind of blast it out into the ether and say, everybody help us. But definitely, if you're interested, email all three of us and we'll find some good things for you to do.
Yeah, I would say definitely, when I'm asked that question, like you said, this, like when we don't need help, like people always asking, how can I help all the time? That's crazy. But honestly, I always look at it this way, like, how do you see that you can help us? Like if you follow us and you know what we do, sometimes it's hard for me in the moment to pinpoint, what it is, right? Because I don't know your skill set or know your ambitions or what the things that you do. But if you can see where you can fit in or you can add something, like definitely reach out, email, and put yourself out there and let us know.
I got another question about grant funding. How important has grant funding been to the bigger milestones in your organization's growth? And how do you see that changing in the post-pandemic economy?
Maybe you should answer that. Yeah. I don't get a lot of big funding.
Yeah. Well, Marcey had mentioned that he hadn't gotten into the grant writing thing. That takes time. I would say that I've been saying this to a lot of the folks that we've been working with, is that first of all, grant writing is absolutely vital to our survival. It's almost 50% of where our funding comes from. It's a constant conversation for me. I'm always talking to organizations, big and small, foundations, big and small, all across the country. I have several people who help out with grant writing. I do a lot of grant writing myself, and it's a constant conversation with the people who are involved. As far as how to do it, I think it's taken us a lot of time. When we are explaining ourselves and what we're going to do, I think it's very difficult, especially for probably Culture House and Connecco, particularly, when you are constantly redefining yourself. You are constantly trying to explain yourself to grantors. And so one of the most important things that you have to do is generate a reputation. Without that reputation of just sort of saying, trust me, it's going to be cool, is hard at the beginning. And so, Marcey's got kind of a long road ahead of him as far as, being able to kind of get that trust me, it's going to be cool thing out there so that foundations are going to trust you. But after 10 years, we can say, hey, we've got this general idea. Here are the people who are going to be involved. Trust us, it's going to be cool. And we're starting to see those grants come in a little bit more regularly, and we don't have to bite our nails and sweat as much as we used to, I think.
Definitely find wood and knock on it.
We're new at the grant writing thing. But again, it's about communicating your ideas, telling your story, being consistent. I tease the high school kids that I work with, and I tell them, your bullshit has to be tremendous. But then I'll glare at them, you damn well have better done your homework, and you better be able to perform, or you get one meeting. So it really is about that communication, making that funder feel comfortable and confident that, even though your bullshit's tremendous, you're going to perform.
I like that. Tim, you have the best sayings. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, you're right. My bullshit is tremendous. That's all we have. Kim, I'll give it to you to take away and close us out. Thank you so much, everyone.
Well, hold on. Before we wrap up, there was one more question in the chat there from Eddie to Marcey. How can we help with the digital footprint with Culture House? He said he loves your work and wants to help with your cause. So how do we help?
Eddie. That Eddie San Sosa, the homie Eddie. Honestly, if you know we are into telling our story, I think digitally that is the most help that we can use is folks that have cameras and have audio recorders and have cameras, and if their thing is telling stories, come let us tell our story. I think that helps our digital footprint. It continues to get our message out there, continue to spread the awareness. It gives other creators content and gives us content.
Why is developing creativity in individuals so important? Each of us needs to develop creatively. You can't just stop, even if you're going to go be, a financial advisor. Like, why is it so important for all of us to maintain creativity and culture and be open-minded, if you will?
I think you live a little longer, and I think you stress a little bit less. I feel like that. I think you have to have a creative outlet. You just have to, even if it's for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. It has to be something that can get your mind away from everything else. I feel like we're always in a state that's not natural, just because there's so much man-made things that are put upon us every day that we have to get up and we have to react to all the time. So being able to, take yourself out of that and go somewhere else and just create, there's something, there's just something about creating, you know what I'm saying? And then seeing it done, and it's like, wow, that's just all I'm saying, man. It's like, it's just a good feeling, but I think it helps you out overall though.
So I speak with our founders all the time, and June, who's almost 80 years old and is constantly immersed in his own creative thoughts, always asks me this question: do you think you can teach creativity? And we talk about that constantly. We talk about even what the definition of creativity is. And the only thing that we know about creativity is that nothing interesting in our lives have ever happened without creativity. Every innovation that's ever happened, every invention, anything that is interesting comes from creativity. And that's the level of importance that creativity has on our lives. And with regards to teaching it, it's not something that I believe can exactly be taught. It's really something that requires living in it and understanding it. And it comes in every shape and form that you can possibly think of. It requires that you are constantly rethinking it in order for it to be creative. It doesn't just add escape to our lives, because we can personally be in our own groove. It adds the purpose for our lives. It adds the reason for us to kind of get up and do anything in the morning.
I guess I'd say it like this. If I'm going to take a trip and I know how I'm going to get there, I know when I'm going to get there, I know what I'm going to do when I get there, probably won't go. It really is about what's next and curiosity and, what if we do this? If everything's going to be the same, I don't want to be involved. And creativity is really what's next. What do you think? What's your interpretation? My oldest son, when he was little, he put 2 words together. It was why, how. And he wanted to know why we did something, then he wanted to know how we did it. And then he'd smash it and let's do it again, Dad. So yeah, it's if we don't have creativity, then what's the point?
Good. I might name our education education space. Why how? That sounds like a pretty cool thing to name.